I just wanted to give you that awareness in case anyone else asks. Yeah. So we can, if you have any questions for those opportunities for them, just let me know. Okay. Okay. All right.
Great. There's slightly, like instead of streets, it says public. I would say they're primarily public. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm picking myself, so I missed a committee reference in here somewhere. Huh? You said you changed one of them from. You said one of the changes in here was a committee change?
All right, everybody, it's 7 o'clock. I'm just making sure our mic is on, our camera is on. Okay. All right, I am going to call to order our Tuesday, January 16th Common Council meeting. Megan, will you please take the roll?
Davis. Here. Lampy.
Here.
Ford. Here. Bartz. Here. Blanky.
Here.
Smith. Here. Schmid. Wetzel. Here. Moldenhauer. Here.
If you would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. The first item on our agenda is the minutes of the council meeting from January 2nd. Comments or questions from anybody on those? All right, we do have a public hearing this evening, but first I'm going to call for comments and suggestions from citizens present. Is there anyone that's registered, Megan? Anyone remotely that would like to comment? All right, we do have another opportunity at the end of our meeting as well. Let's move to our public hearing then. This is a public hearing to amend the City of Watertown's comprehensive plan. If anyone would like to comment during the public hearing, you can come to the microphone and state your name and address. So I'll open that public hearing.
Good evening, Mike Hoppenrath, 1302 Newcastle Court. The property in question is 1310 Allward Street. It was formerly proposed for a school. It is immediately adjacent to my lot, as others. And when we bought the lot, we knew it was going to be zoned for a school. We accepted that, and we expected all the things that go along with the school. We did not expect multifamily to go in there. There's a natural dividing line with Allward Street, Juneau, and North 4th, and that separates the current multifamily that's in our area. So what I would just ask that you keep this single family. You should have received some letters also, which I hope get read into the record. I would just ask those of you that live in single families if you would like multifamily plopped in next to you when it's never been talked about in the future and hadn't been planned on. I know the developer makes more money the more people you can cram into an area, but I don't believe that makes it right. So I'm asking that you keep this single family. I thank you for your time. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Hoppenrath. Do you have letters? Mr. Hoppenrath, did anyone receive letters? You guys all did?
I did.
So I just want to be, so Ms. Davis got letters, the clerk didn't get any. So if there's any letters that you want to have.
Well, they told me they were going to send it in.
Okay.
I
great.
didn't babysit them. So.
Oh, no, I'm just making sure that you weren't aware of ones we should have.
Nope.
So, okay,
Nope.
thank you. Anyone else would like to, yeah, Mr. Schultz.
I'm Tom Schultz. I'm president of Mary Rose Subdivision Incorporated, which is the developer of Grandview Heights Subdivision, which is part of this area where we're talking about. We've been working, we have built over 400 residential single-family lots in Watertown, and we think that they have been a tremendous benefit. Houses out there are $350,000, $400,000 according to sales now. We see nothing good that will come out of a big multi-family development there. Originally, that was going to be part of our subdivision, and at the last minute, the school district decided that it would want that 20 acres, which, that's the way it was. Got very expensive for us because you lose the economies of scale. But the end result was everybody's intention that bought out there, that lived out there, and it's a beautiful subdivision. And I just can't see anything but single family there. I think it'd be a travesty.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else that would like to comment? Anybody online that would like to comment? All right, I'll close that public hearing, and then those comments will be going back to the Plan Commission. Okay, I want to be careful. The comments pertaining to Allward are going back to the Plan Commission. There's other comments that are relevant to this portions of that were relevant to this evening. Reports. You all have the Board of Health minutes from November 14th, Park Rec and Forestry from November 20th, Finance from December 11th, Police and Fire from December 11th, Finance from December 19th, Redevelopment Authority from December 20th, Public Works from January 9th, and Public Safety from January 10th. Comments or questions from anyone on those? Mr. Lampe.
Just want to call your attention, 7E on the Finance Committee minutes. If in the packet, page 26, those are the Finance Committee minutes where we talked about the room tax that pertains to 12A coming up. Previous reference was in council packet from December 19th, and the Tourism Commission minutes from December 14th on page 34.
Thank you. Anybody else to comment on any of those reports? All right, then let's move to communications and recommendations. Our first item this evening is a fire department fire station update. Mark is here from SEH. I'm going to switch over to your screen in just a second. You good for me to switch? Yep. Okay. All right, so we did, I emailed a copy to Alder Blanky, and you all should have a copy at your desk. We asked Mark just to provide an update from our last point in time. So he has prepared a presentation, and I see brought some materials along for people. So go ahead.
Yep. Good evening. My name is Mark Zitkovitz with SEH. We were tasked with designing the fire station. Last time we were here was in July, so we just kind of came to give you kind of an update of where we are as we're nearing the 90% completion for these construction documents. Within your packet of information, it's going to be everything that's on these slides, but you're going to see all the representatives, the design team that's been working together to develop these documents, along with the agenda of items that I have. I know you have a busy night, so I'll try to be brief. So since we last were in front of you, we completed our design development, and the design team that you had seen listed had gone and toured 5 different stations around the state. 2 of them were in Fitchburg, 2 in Kenosha, and then 1 in Kaukauna. We brought in our interior designer to help us look at different interior material finishes. We selected from the palettes that she had put forth, as well as selecting exterior materials. Right now, we are in our final coordination stages between the fire department's equipment and how that interfaces with the building systems. Recently, we completed our ComCheck report, which is, in layman terms, it's an analysis of the building to determine its energy efficiency. And we are nearing our 90% completion on the construction documents. Our schedule, back in September, we were at 60%, and at that point, we paused the design and we had the construction manager, Moss Brothers, complete a cost estimate. Following that cost estimate, we took a look at the numbers as they came in, and we addressed the design that we had put forth, as well as the budget itself, to make those come in line with one another. As I had stated, we're coming up on our 90% review. Next week, we're going for site plan and review and plan commission, and we're eyeing to go out for bid middle of February with a bid date in March and starting construction in spring. To give you kind of an overview of the site plan, just to, nothing much has changed in terms of how everything's been oriented on the site. The largest change that you really would see is that the cold storage building, which is the structure, had previously been located over in the southeast corner. We had to relocate it due to the sewer easement, but it does a nice job as far in terms of blocking the rear of the station, which is where they'll have the fire department will have a training tower. So it's kind of a happy accident. To give you an idea is how the building is massing up and what it kind of looks like. You're looking at a building just under 35,000 square feet, a two-story building, and then there's a little over 1,100 square foot training tower to the rear of the building, and then, as I mentioned, a 3,000 square foot cold storage building. The materials that you see are representative of the samples that I did bring this evening, so to kind of give you an idea of what the building is actually going to look like. As we were going through the design and developing the massing, developing the materials, we were trying to be cognizant of the neighboring buildings. There's residential, there's a little commercial, so we wanted to blend in. We definitely didn't want to land a spaceship in the middle of Watertown, so we tried to keep everything earth tones, muted, masonry, quality construction, but also make it fit in with the landscape. And at the same time, we wanted to future-proof the station, so we incorporated things like natural daylighting, making sure there's male-female accommodations, it's energy efficient, there's accessibility, and it's safe. Some items, just some opportunities and features that I figured we should highlight that are being incorporated in this facility. There's recently there was a law that was put into effect that allows for non-face-to-face infant relinquishment for parents. So we'll be incorporating an infant safety box into the facility. In addition to that, there's going to be, as I mentioned, the training tower, which allows the fire department to stay in quarters, do their training, and remain in service. We kept, by this new station is going to centralize all your equipment. So instead of the fire department equipment that's currently being housed throughout different city buildings, now it's all going to be on one campus. We made aims to keep our design focused on carcinogen containment and decontamination. In case there's ever another COVID type of scenario, the fire department will be set up so that they can safely respond to those calls and decontaminate themselves when they return. In addition to that, there's also going to be a large training room and an on-site wellness facility. As I had mentioned, we had gone through a value engineering phase, just to kind of give you an idea of where the project had started, where they currently are, where we picked up, and then where we are right now. Currently, you're just a little over 17,000 square feet. When we came on board, the program was at about just under 42,000. That over the course of our design, at 60%, we were just over 37,000, and at 90%, we're just under 35,000. Some of that major square footage that was taken out was through the staff car garage, and there was a portion of basement that was originally planned for the building, and that basement has been removed now. We've also simplified the roof, we've simplified the cold storage construction, and we changed out the type of elevator that's being specified. But that doesn't mean that we've been turning a blind eye to everything. We do want the building to be sustainable. Doesn't mean you have to put solar panels on the roof, but incorporating things like LED lighting, natural source material, making it energy conscious. We did take into effect natural day lighting and definitely the UV control. And in terms of the resilience, we've incorporated all masonry construction, so it's going to be built of a quality construction. It's going to last. We built it as efficiently as possible to decrease the amount of wasted square footage, and we incorporate high performance apparatus bay doors. Based on the 90% completion, as I said, we're just under $35,000 square feet. I'm sorry, and the fire station is currently budgeted just under $11.3 million. That comes out to about $325 a square foot. We have the training tower in the back, along with the FF&E. So right now we're at just under $14.8 for the total project cost. And then as we go into our next steps, like I said, we're at 90%. Next week we're looking at site plan commission. Early February, looking to advertise for bid and go for bids in the middle of February, and go for state plan review at the same time. Receiving bids about mid-March and starting construction this spring. That's it.
Mark, can you talk, Mark, about the financial page?
Mark, can you go back to that one? Just to provide some of these numbers are included in the 14,796, but if you did the math on the fire station, training tower, FF&E, you don't equal the 14,796. So don't try to do the math. I'm telling you, it's not going to equal. What's not included there would be the cost of financing and contingency fund. Contingency is at an 8% number, and so that's all inclusive in this. And we've got to understand that the process is going to be to go out to bid, and then once the bids come in, we'll have an understanding of what do we have to play with, if you will, for some alternates that will be requested for pricing purposes. But then at that point, some of those decisions will be going back to Finance Committee to determine, do we want to say yes or no to some of the high efficiency doors on the backside. That's one of our alternates. Exterior finish is another alternate. Storage building is an alternate. Training tower and the kinds of things relating to that is an alternate. So there are still the capabilities of making future decisions on that number, but this is what the estimated costs of the project are at this point.
And then I see Anthony Moss is here in case there's questions on that end. And then obviously Deputy Chief Rauterberg, and then our Battalion Chief, Chad Butler, that's been a big part of this, is here too. So we've got a lot of people to answer questions if anyone has any, is my point. What can we answer for you? Or what comments do you have? Mr. Moldenhauer.
And you're at 14,796,000. Is that a projected cost? I mean, I know it's just a projected cost, but it could be a lot higher than that then too.
Were you making a move? Why don't you, can you come to a microphone, please? Go ahead, Mark, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I saw him start to move. You guys can both answer. Okay.
No, I mean, the final cost will be determined with the bid. So with a competitive bid job, you're going to get the lowest and best price. And that's basically what our aim is. So at this point, that number is high, but we're hoping that
We could shave it down.
that's what our hope is. yeah.
Okay, because that's high.
Mark, you have anything to add?
That the number that we started with Anthony's help and Moss Brothers is a mid-range, and we have to remind ourselves that that 12.5 came from and to a range that was below and higher than. So it is subjected to what the whim of the bidding process allows for us. It was the happy medium that was the obvious number to put on the page, but it is subject to that bidding process, and I feel like we've got some latitudes built into this that allow for us to be able to say we will not exceed the $15 million number.
Yes.
Just an additional question on, we raise that up to 14 million. And I was figuring we could hold it at that. Now we're 796 beyond that. We had talked about that at a previous council meeting. We went up to 14 million. I remember raising it up. And Alderman Smith and myself voted against that. And I was hoping that we were going to hold it at 14 million.
I have some input on that because I had that same thought, Mr. Moldenhauer. I'm thinking that 14 million is what we agreed to borrow, but there are other funding sources that contribute to the total project. Am I right about that, Mr. Stevens? So I'm looking at that sheet where you gave us a breakdown. If we borrow 12.5, this is what we can do, 13.5, 14, 14.5. And as I look at the 14 column, it says total funding sources is 15,635. So I'm thinking, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, that it's 14 million that we're borrowing, but there are other funding sources
That's correct.
that will then take us to 15 million. And what I heard Mr. Stevens say is there's still a commitment to keep us under 15 million.
But that's over 500,000.
Well,
I mean, talking about, I know there's additional costs for financing and all that, but that seems like an awful high number to me.
yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you, but that, I was with you in my curiosity. So it was never that the total project was going to be 14 million. It was that we were going to borrow 14 million, and then we had funding sources of about a million that would bring us the total project. I'm not disagreeing with you. It's a lot of money, and it's not great.
You want to add anything? No, you just have to do it at the microphone so people remotely can hear you. You can go to that one by Miss Davis. That's just fine.
Yeah, our job at this point in time is to make sure that we, get the word out and solicit as many contractors as possible, to get as many bids as possible in March, to create competition and keep costs down. It really is the open market's going to tell us what this is going to cost, and like Mark Stevens said, we've built in some flexibility here to make some decisions, one way or another on that. So
can I ask a question?
Please.
How many people are on your bid list today?
So there's going to be bid packages. I don't know exactly the number if we've established it quite yet. It's usually right around 20 bid packages, and the goal is to have at least 3 bids in each bid package. Now that means we'll solicit a lot more than that, but trying to find at least 3 bidders in each bid package is our goal. Sometimes you'll get 6, sometimes maybe you only get 2.
So the bid packages are not focused on general contractors. You're focused on individual trades. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. So we'll have like a bid package for site work, a bid package for masonry, a bid package for steel erection, electrical, HVAC, plumbing. So those bids come directly to the city, and there's a bid opening where we'll have here where we'll hopefully be opening, 60 bids or whatever that number may be.
Yes, sir. Who was that? I'm sorry. Mr. Board, were you still going?
I'm back.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay, Mr. Lampy.
I was just wondering on the mechanics. I mean, who's looking at things when things come into the city from an operating perspective, at the bid openings, or basically operating level, not necessarily finance? We need some additional money or approval for this.
Who's attending the bid openings?
Yeah,
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, what's the mechanism?
Mark attends and runs it. Normally, the Public Works Director helps. You've done it a couple of times. Is that the representation that we've used?
Yeah, so I'll be there, construction manager's there. Everything is a closed bid until that point in time. And so then we go through and just try to evaluate the dollar amounts. There's some additional work that's necessary to figure out, is this person an eligible bidder? And that's part of the construction manager's job, just to make sure that this is not a fly-by-night company. And also there would be some vetting of who it is that's bidding on each of these packages.
And I'm assuming you do that publicly? That's
Yes.
a public
Yeah.
opening, right?
Yeah.
Who's responsible for the general conditions, Mark?
That would be between us and Moss Brothers.
So, you're right. I mean, the numbers total around 13,180,000 on the sheet. So can you help me again with what else isn't on here?
The two biggies are financing costs of about $774,000 and contingency 8% of construction, which is about $970,000.
And I assume that all of the fees have been identified as part of the current number, the 14.8?
Yes.
So the design fees, the construction manager fees, all of that is included? Okay.
Anybody else?
Is the tower a separate building or is it connected? How far apart are they? Which is my stupid desire to know. But, and is there any intention to try to get LEED certification or anything on this building?
Any other comments or questions? Anybody want to see the materials for the exterior? You feel solid about that? I knew there was some question about that, so I asked him to bring one along. Okay, well, thank you guys. I appreciate you coming and providing us an update. Are you going to move on up when he's done? Okay. All right, then let's go to employee recognitions. We do have one this evening, and it's in the fire department. So Lieutenant Pieper has been with the city for 20 years. I know he was unable to join us tonight, and we thank him for his dedicated service to our community. In your packets is some information we provide annually. This is the 2023 construction information. Does anyone have any comments or questions on that? Yes, Ms. Davis.
In conjunction with our just recent conversation about the fire station, there were, 13 houses built in 2023? And I've never been accused of being a Pollyanna. I'm more the opposite, a pessimist. It makes me pessimistic about the fire station. I just have to put that out there because obviously that had to do with interest rates and cost of construction and things like that. So I'm concerned about the fire station.
Anybody else? All right, then let's move to our next item, which is the December Fire Department monthly report. Anything for our Deputy Chief?
Just want to hit some quick highlights
Yeah,
for
go
you
for it.
guys. 294 calls for the month. That's an all-time December and all-time any month record. Fire calls were down compared to last year, and it's basically between fire alarms and structure fires what brought that down. We did have a swearing in for 2 members, Autumn Stegall and Josh Archibald. We did have a new employee start, Amy Stegall. And 17% of the time were simultaneous runs. And they put 518.75 man-hours of training last month.
That's great.
On top of all those calls.
Very good. Thank you. Anybody else on this one then? All right, let's move to our new business. I'm going to go to our city attorney in just a moment here. We just wanted to provide you guys an update on the Emmett boundary agreement process. So, Stephen?
We've drafted a proposed ordinance for that revision. We're in the process of revising it and just putting the final touches on it. That will be going over to the town of Emmett likely by next week so that they can review as well and provide feedback on that ordinance. It's covering generally the topics that were authorized in the original ordinance, trying to limit the space of what the town and city growth zones are, as well as sorry, I'm trying to pull it up.
I'm trying to rattle through them in my head. So I know you tell me when you've got it pulled up. I know we talked about adjustments to the rate at which they receive a portion of taxes. So we've cut that duration of time back. So we'll keep those taxes earlier, fuller and earlier. We made some adjustments to stormwater easements that we can have out in the town. We permitted people to not have to connect to city sewer and water until there's a pipe essentially laid in front of their property. We adjusted the town, kind of the city growth area. I'm wondering, that's all that's coming to my head, and I know there's probably like 6 more. Brian, do you have the list in front of you?
I got it.
Oh, you've got it? Okay, go ahead, Stephen.
So it does adjust the rate. It goes to a 5-year reduction plan where in the first year, 50% of the lost revenue that the town has is paid to the town, 40% the next year, 30% 2010, and then nothing. That's a change from the 100% down to 0% to 10% per year. The term of the plan is also being adjusted. Currently, it goes to 2032, I believe. This reduces it down to 2030 or 2029, which is the same 5-year plan as what the payment plan is, so that this agreement stops at that point. It does readjust the time frame for the hookups. That's now 12 months following installation of water and wastewater services lines adjacent to the property, or within 6 months of a property's private water treatment system failing, unless the property owner is able to correct the violation and become compliant within 60 days of that failing. So that gives them an opportunity to work with Dodge County, cure any defect or issue with their service. If they're unable to do that within 60 days, it starts them on a timeline to get hooked up to the city's sewer and water. 60 days for them to cure the violation. And then if they fail to do it within that 60 days, 6 months to actually hook up to the city in total. So it would be essentially 4 months after they failed to cure the violation, they would still have that 4 months to prep and plan how to hook up to the city water. It didn't make sense to have that date that determines they have to hook up to city water be the same date that they have to hook up to it. So just extended that out a little bit. Redefining the town growth plan and city growth area. That's pretty much all of it.
That's it. Brian, is there anything that you want to add?
Just that we're looking at also the zoning enforcement in the town growth area, and whether the city would enforce city zoning or town zoning or none of the above.
So we've updated an ordinance, as Stephen said, that's going to the town, and then we're meeting, I believe, January 31st with the town. After that, if we're all on the same page, then it'll come to you all. Yes?
I just want to thank you for your work. This sounds like it was very challenging and pretty complicated, so I thank you for hashing out all those details, and we'll see where that goes then with the town.
Thank you. Brian and Stephen have done a lot of lifting on this one. Yeah.
Could you go through the city growth piece again?
Sure. You want Brian to talk about it? Brian, you want to cover city growth?
I was trying to pull up a map of them.
Sure.
Growth areas.
Basically, what we're looking at doing is shrinking that, and removing most of the part west of the 26 bypass, because it's really not cost effective to service that area with sewer. Is going to be in excess of $20 million to run a pipe up there, and it just really isn't realistic. It's been in the city growth area for almost 25 years, and clearly nothing's happened, and it seems like an unrealistic area to serve. So we were looking at reducing that to basically the area between the old 26 and the bypass 26 north of the city.
We're going to pull up a map in the room quick. So it currently is the kind of yellow area with the hatching over the top, and we would just be moving it to just the area in the red. Does that help, Mr. Lampy?
It does, in terms of explaining where we want to go.
Yeah, the biggest trigger for us is we have virtually no ability to service that area with utilities. the pipe and the infrastructure necessary, as Brian said, is in today's dollars over $20 million, just to be able to move sanitary. We have a couple of areas very close to the city that have substantial sanitary restrictions on the south side as well. There's a parcel that I know wants to come into the city, and we can't. I mean, to serve them with sanitary would be very expensive. Any other questions for Brian or Stephen? So you guys will probably see this back, I'd say like mid-February would be my guess. We'll meet with them at the end of the month. I feel like we're pretty close together. I have to say it's been nothing but positive working with the town. I was in Madison to testify at the Urban Towns public hearing, and it was interesting to me to listen to the types of relationships people, cities and villages have with their towns. And then I think about the relationships that we have, and just so grateful that ours have been very amenable, and that we understand each other's needs and capabilities. And I've just been really grateful to be able to work with the town in such a productive way. So, if there's no other comments or questions, we'll plan to have this back to you guys sometime, hopefully in February, after we've met with them later this month, and get this one started. So, okay. Let me switch this back. All right, then let's move to the accounts payable. Motion by Mr. Moldenhauer, second by Mr. Wetzel. Any discussion on the accounts? Is there accounts in here? I'm just like, wait a second, I don't have any in my packet. Well, very good. Can I rescind those? Do you want to share why there's no accounts in there? I feel like you actually messaged me about this earlier today.
I did.
I apologize.
No problem.
It's a cadence I've done for 11 years. You should have reminded me before the meeting. Sorry, you guys. Please go ahead.
We're in the process of transitioning. We have, through finance, made a modification of the purchasing policy, and that modification includes a major change as it relates to the impact to the council. Up until this point, you've approved effectively the payment of checks for products that have already been purchased and potentially consumed. And frankly, it doesn't make sense to me. It seems awfully backwards. What we need to do is utilize the process of our budget for the approval process at the front end, and allow the budget to be the constraining process of what is purchased and what is not purchased. We need to inform you, obviously, of what is going to be purchased, or what has been purchased is the better way of saying it, after the fact. And so stay tuned. In the next meeting, you will see both a resolution for a new purchasing policy as well as modification on an ordinance that will indicate that accounts payable will be a list on the second meeting of each month following the payment of all kinds of expenses. And so we report to you what has been done. Effectively, we've been doing that. It's just we have held off writing the actual physical check until this point in the council meeting. So it will be a change that is presented to you in the next council meeting.
Any questions about that? Okay. All right, let's move to miscellaneous business. You have the payroll summary from December 13th through December 26th, and cash and investments ending December 31st. Those are in the packet. Any questions or comments on those? Okay, let's move to ordinances then. The first is ordinance 24-01. This is to amend Chapter 76, Article 2, Section 76-13 of our city code. This is for an increase in the room tax. This is here for me and the Finance Committee on the second reading. Mr. Lampe.
2401.
Thank you. Is there a second? Motion by Lampe, second by Board. Discussion, comments? Megan.
Lampe? Board?
Aye.
Bartz?
Aye.
Blanky?
Aye.
Smith?
Aye.
Wetzel? Moldenhauer? Davis? Motion passed 8-0.
Thank you. Next is ordinance 24-02. This is to amend section 500-9A, parking prohibited in specified places. This is here from Ms. Davis in Public Safety and Welfare on the first reading.
I'll move for ordinance 24-02.
Thank you. Motion by Davis, second by Mr. Board. Comments or questions from anyone on this one? Megan?
Davis. Nampi.
Aye.
Ward.
Aye.
Bartz.
Aye.
Blanky.
Aye.
Smith. Wetzel. Moldenhauer. Motion passed 8-0.
Thank you. Next is ordinance 24-03. This is to repeal and recreate section 428-7, special events. This is here from Ms. Davis in Public Safety and Welfare on the first reading. Ms. Davis?
Move to approve ordinance 24-03, and that would be the revised version that Mr. Cheesebro put on our desk tonight.
Thank you. Is there a second to that? Second by Mr. Bartz. The revised version, I think it's safe to characterize as primarily housekeeping items, right? It's department names being concurrent with the formal name in the code, and then
A numbering issue.
yeah, a renumbering, like a citation that we had to drop a letter or a number off of. Go ahead.
We updated the title to make it clearer that it does create section 428-9 of the code. It's a little inconsistent in that creation of 428-9, as 428-9 is what was previously approved by the council and was created to read as 428-7M. The only change to that section from what's currently in the code is the addition of sub 1 sub C. That provision was already in the code, but we realized that there wasn't a separate section noting that the creation of that, it had just been incorporated into that first section. So we wanted to spell it out and just make it clearer for everybody that that is being included in there. And then, as the mayor indicated before, just housekeeping, clarifying the streets was actually Public Works and Parks was Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Department.
Other comments or questions? Mr. Lampe?
Mine's probably going to be a little lengthy here. I've got two hats on. I've got kind of the council hat, but more so also president of Watertown Riverfest Incorporated. And so a couple of things I just wanted to highlight in terms of things that are we're probably going to take a look at as we move forward. First, though, I wanted to start with a couple of really good things from my perspective. If you look at like section D 3 or 4, that section introduces advance notice of pricing of special events, and that really introduces a feedback loop that I think is important to any event organizer. It's something that we pressed the city essentially very hard as Riverfest to get last year, and basically introduces a feedback loop that if essentially, if you do this, we'll charge you Y, do you still want to do it? I think that's a very valuable feedback loop to have with organizations that are going to be potentially doing something in the city. Second, the other thing that I was happy to see is that this removes the subsidization of essentially brand new events. And for me, I remember there was a run that appeared in town where people dressed up as zombies and walked all over the place. And under our current ordinance, I mean, that would be completely free, but we've got, you know, like the Jig Jog that brings, you know, thousands of dollars into the community every year, gets full boat, and other events that do good things as well pay full boat as well. And so I was kind of happy to see that the subsidization was taken away, and thereby essentially tilts the tables back to people with event planning experience or the wherewithal essentially to hold an event in the city. Two other ones that I really liked to see in here that the Public Safety Committee came up with was basically looking at the organizers and making sure that they essentially were who they say they were. So you're looking at like F1, D11, where we look at the personal info. Having that information on file and actually authorizing the city to make sure that the organizers involved in essentially is you know, city resources for a period of time, that they are fairly responsible individuals, that they We're not doing this to essentially get around other activities. Happy to see that that was included. And finally, we were happy to see something that we've done, again, as a large event, planning for lots of people to be on site, which is basically codification of an emergency plan. Pretty much all of the items and a few more than that. We're part of the Riverfest planning in 2023, and we expect that it's going to remain. So kind of happy to see those items called out explicitly to make sure that we're actually having, and our organization, other organizations are having those explicit discussions with the city. The next thing I wanted to look at was some items that I was a little worried about as I was going through here, and these are also, I'm going to come back to these probably in a second, as things we're probably going to look for amendment to the Riverfest agreement. And if you're interested in that one, you can look back, let's see, where is that? The February 7th, 2023 council packet on page 61 has the exact agreement on it. So some of the things that we were worried about potentially could use some clarification is within A4, the organizer is potentially a little clear. The concern there is that that could unintentionally encompass people who are participating in the or organizing some minor piece of the organization, but not necessarily one of the officers.
By one, do you want feedback now, or are you
Well,
just?
Since I provided the feedback in advance, I just want to get through the list, and then we can go through what we want to do with that. In A5E, I want to be careful looking at like A5E versus H. I don't know if it was intentional that we have 200 people versus 300 people in those two different sections. In C4 and also in 428.9, Section 3, where we talk about waivers for city events or the parade fees, I worry that we're creating a potential large liability for the city at an extreme. Not likely, but I don't see a financial cap on either of those. In F1 D14, we already did talk about this one. There is some desire to have some of those emergency plans be confidential. Again, some of the plans that we set up with the police department last year are not necessarily things we want to send out to the entire public. So, to be explicit, under this agreement, as if it's passed as is, if you look at the existing Riverfest agreement, there's a couple of things we would look to amend that agreement on. So again, A4, we would basically look to have that defined down to a nonprofit board, and essentially we've got a number of appointed executives in addition to that board. E3 within the ordinance is about parking. I know that's an ordinance that's already on the books, was not enforced in 2023. And we're already working with Park and Rec in terms of what that means for basically the park, car, auto permit, and whatnot. E6 and E7, we already have an agreement with the city that provides certain exceptions to that, essentially because we've got the ability to fully light the park at any moment, and we also have another defined noise standard for E7. In F1C, concerned about sort of being behind weddings or other small events that are coming through the city. We want to make sure that we get prioritization for a large event that's coming through in terms of the attention of department heads and others that basically would have to render costs and plans. For F1D14, we'd want to make sure that a couple of our emergency plans are confidential. For F1D16, we're already underneath a partial exemption through the agreement with the city, basically that Riverfest has got the full Riverside Park for specified weekends in August. And we would basically look to merge that one. We're already working with the Park and Rec Department under their new space reservation form for 2024. So overall, there's a couple of clauses in here that essentially generate a lot of new paperwork for Riverfest or any other special event organizer. There really aren't any special event organizers that are looking forward to this ordinance. The ones that are going to generate the most paperwork are probably E3, F1, D, 12, 13, 14, and 16. And then the other piece that I'm not a huge fan of, well, this isn't really my Riverfest hat on, is that this would now go through the Public Safety Committee versus the clerk. And very happy with the existing procedure with the clerk. I think that that department is well trained, knows the procedures, and even with a complex ordinance like this, I think they could be trained up basically to execute all the provisions and basically do it within the city and not necessitate another trip back through another committee.
Okay, I want to try to do this in as an efficient way as we can. So I think I heard you talk about the city-sponsored parade section. That section exists as it currently stands. I think the only addition here is adding the homecoming parade and then some renumbering. So this is currently in code with the exception of the addition of the homecoming parade. So is there any discussion we want to have about that? I'm going to try to chip off some of the easy ones.
Okay.
So I think, Mr. Limpy, I think that one is probably solid for now, I would say, unless obviously the majority of you all change that section. I'm either going to come to our city attorney or to our police chief as it pertains to the confidentiality of an emergency action plan. Is that something we do have the capacity to keep confidential?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens, or excuse me, Ms. Davis. I was looking at Stephen, that's why I came out that way. Ms. Davis.
Address that. The application, think of it more of as a guide, almost as a fill in the blank, helping people as they navigate and plan for a special event. So Megan's doing a great job working on the application right now, but it's intended to help people through the process. So I anticipate, and it hasn't been finalized, but I anticipate it's more like the wording, do you have an emergency action plan? Maybe who's your contact? Have you shared this with the police department? You know, those types of wording. I don't know, I think that's kind of the way that we've been working on the application. Would you want to weigh in on that?
Megan, can you use your mic? Thank you.
We have some areas in the back to put a pretty broad emergency plan, but obviously if there's more detailed ones, those can be kept.
Yep.
And that can stay confidential.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, we did that last year for Pride in the Park. We had our own emergency plans that I remember during those presentations, you know, I'm not going to, the chief at the time would say, I'm not going to share all of that with you, like some of this we have to keep confidential. So I heard those two, and I felt like those two are easy ones for me to cross off your list right away. Ms. Davis, are you wanting to jump in?
Do you have anything else you wanted to work on?
No, I was just going to start paging, kind of going through the sections that he had mentioned.
Well, I'd like to address the items. He was kind enough to send these ahead of time so I could get some accurate answers for him. So the first one, A4, he spoke to organizer, and that is intended to be broad, and it's intended to be defined by the event applicant. There was confusion in one of the initial drafts because it said board members. The thinking was, who's on your special event board? But that then got confused with, we have 14 people on our nonprofit organization board. Do they all have to be on there? So because of feedback that we got from nonprofit partners and community partners that we work with, Mr. Cheesebro defined the term organizer, and it is intended to be broad, but it's speaking towards who's on your event planning committee. Write them down there. And so it's, in your case for special Riverfest, I would put your 4 or 5 board members there. That makes sense because they actually have, they're overseeing different departments the way you've structured it. So that was the intent of that, and it's intended to be broadly defined. Anything for Mr. Cheesebro that you wanted to add to the organizer?
It would be up to the individual organization to determine who's organizing the event, to provide that information and to make sure that they're including anybody that's got kind of decision-making authority in the organization process.
Okay. So the next item you said there was confusion, A5E, which says 200 people. and Section H, which says 300 people. Section A5E is specifically speaking to private property, and it's saying if you have 300 people on private property, it could be considered a special event. Section H is saying, talking to insurance. So if you have 200 people in your special event, then you need to get insurance. So the 300 and the 200 are overlapping, but there's a reason why it's 300 and 200. So if you have 300 people on private property and are a special event, you need to get insurance. C4, city event fee, maybe you didn't touch on that right now. Okay, let's move on. So good news that we have worked pretty hard on getting a fee schedule set up, and it's going to come to Finance Committee for approval. Public Safety kind of gave a nod of approval for it, but they understand that it's going to Finance Committee, and it could go through some revision once it gets to Finance Committee. So again, a lot of good work from Megan and Mr. Stevens on getting that fee schedule ready to go. So we already talked about the emergency action plan, and there's a need for some confidentiality and discretion there. Did I miss, what else did I miss?
I had noted the parking on park property, which is E13, and I know that that's getting worked through with Park and Rec.
It's in there right now. I should say, what we're bringing to you tonight, it's been a culmination of a lot of works. I was looking starting back in August. We actually started this process researching, reading what other special event codes are out there in different municipalities, and then going through the staff and getting feedback from department heads, and then 4 meetings with public safety where we had a tremendous turnout from the community and got some great input that we were able to incorporate and improve the ordinance. But I say all that to say the ordinance that we pass should understandably still go through revisions in the days and weeks and years in the future. The example right here with the parking, if that's not working out, then we come back around and we revise it at a later date. So, I don't know, did I hit all
Yeah, I
of
think
your things?
you had mentioned illumination and noise. That was in particular Riverfest. The current agreement has call-outs for that. And then I noted F1C, which was applications will be filed in the order of their receipt.
Let me speak to that. Public safety and welfare is named in the ordinance as the ones that will approve, deny, or approve with conditions. And that's in direct response to actually council members and the public requesting that elected officials have some degree of oversight over special events. So that's the reason why the Public Safety and Committee was inserted into this ordinance. Knowing that there are lots of special events, the committee is already very much aware that they may have to meet more frequently, similarly to the licensing board, who has quick meetings sometimes to approve licensing in a turnaround process. The Public Safety Committee may have to do that as well, and they're aware of that, but they see it as a way to address the concerns that were expressed by this council and the public as to having public elected officials involved in the process.
Do you have any others that I didn't touch on?
No,
I got them.
like Dana implied, she had an opportunity to look at these and pretty much covered everything that I wanted to see here. For me, I definitely appreciate the answers and all the work. And like I said, starting off this thing, I thought that there's at least 4 important advances in this ordinance that are basically going to make it better for everybody in the community. I still can't vote for this in the current format, but basically in terms of an event organizer, I mean, certainly prepared to go forward with my events and everything else underneath this format.
Anyone else?
Mr. Cheesebro, question for you. If somebody has an agreement in place with us already, does it not supersede what we're doing tonight? We have a signed contract with Riverfest, correct?
Correct.
That stipulates operations.
They would be able to allege the enforcement of that contract. There are theories in the law that can get around that contract depending on governmental discretion and some other factors. Ultimately, it would come down to what the leadership of the community decided to do in terms of enforcing or complying with the terms of that agreement. Anybody can breach an agreement or terminate an agreement at any time. The question then is just what the damages are or what the repercussions of that would be. So I can't say that we are ironclad bound to that agreement, but I don't have any indication or reason to suspect that we wouldn't follow or comply with that agreement.
That's what I was hoping you'd say. Thanks.
Mr. Lampy?
So I can speak a little bit to the intent of the agreement that was signed. Basically, there were a few things that Riverfest's normal operations could potentially come in immediate conflict with existing ordinances. The most stringent example is probably color of cups. And that's something that is on a separate track basically to get rectified as an ordinance. There's other portions of the existing agreement that essentially ask the Riverfest Committee and the cities to work together on resolutions of a few things, but the overall intent is basically that Riverfest ends up completely complying with the city's ordinances over time.
Anybody else want to comment on or questions about this version of the special event ordinance? Admittedly, that's faster than I thought it would be. So I'll just take up a tiny bit of space to make sure that I thank you publicly. I've thanked you many, many times privately, but I know that I've been a part of many of these, and I know it's difficult to navigate a lot of diverse opinions, and I've heard nothing but great things from my team. And so I really just appreciate, obviously, the leadership of Alderperson Davis, but then of all the alders that attended and provided input, and all the members of the public that did the same. And then, of course, my city team. Mason has been shepherding this one through probably since August when I assigned it to him to get the first versions going. And, you know, Christine, I mean, everyone. I know I think almost everyone on our team has been working really heavily on this. So I'm just really grateful that we're going to be in a position where we can cross this one, hopefully off of a list for a little while and rebalance our workloads to tackle new projects. So I'm grateful for all the work on it and all the input. If there's no other comments or questions, Megan?
Davis. Lampy. Board.
Aye.
Bartz.
Aye.
Blanky.
Aye.
Smith. Wetzel.
Aye.
Moldenhauer. Motion passed 7-1.
Okay, let's move to ordinance 24-04. This is to amend the 2019 City of Watertown Comp Plan to change the future land use category for 1110 South 10th and 1111 South 10th, and to change the text in figure 7.7. This is here for me and the Plan Commission with a positive recommendation on the first reading. Mr. Moldenhauer. Thank you. Motion by Mr. Moldenhauer, second by Mr. Bartz. Comments, questions? Ms. Davis?
I would just say if we had public comments about this, I wouldn't have been able to support it tonight because I think the public comments should go back to the Plan Commission. But since there were no public comments, I think it makes sense to go forward with it.
I don't want to speak for the entire Plan Commission, but we've had this one at Plan Commission probably 4 or 5 times, and the only person that's commented is the person sitting in the room for this project, and I think that's why the Plan Commission was comfortable. That, and we've got a project in the pipeline that's waiting, so, yes.
Good item right here, because I lived right down there by
Mhm.
the Loeb area, and I've been contacted by some of Loeb's people over there, and this is a good way to use that property for something, because otherwise it's just going to sit there idle. We got to get things filled up in Watertown. Let's do things. This is a good item.
Thank you. I want to just provide a little bit of context to Brian, our zoning administrator, has been working really hard to put together compilations of our zoning code. Every time we open our zoning code for changes, we have to do a certain amount of public noticing that costs money. It's like $500, I think, each time. And so we've been trying to couple a bunch of items together. So like figure 7.7 doesn't necessarily pertain to the other 2 items. There's another item that will go back to the Plan Commission that we coupled with that. So I just want to kind of level set with everyone that you may see essentially a few items in section 550, if that's the right section. Normally the zoning code is 550, I think. you might see the zoning code open for a variety of topics. I just don't want people to attempt to piece those together because you won't always find continuity there. Sure.
Mr. Blanky has his hand up.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Mr. Blanky.
I just wanted to point out also, one of the reasons the Plan Commission was comfortable with going forward with this without the public comment is the use that is proposed is almost identical to the use that it was in the past. It was just simply, well, not simply, but it was more of a housekeeping to get the area zoned properly.
Thank you. And you can pipe up anytime if I don't see your hand raised, but I appreciate you guys pointing that out. Any other questions or comments on this one? Megan?
Oldenhauer? Davis?
Aye.
Lampy? Board? Bartz? Blanky?
Aye.
Smith?
Abstain.
Wetzel? Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you. Next is ordinance 24-05. This is to amend Chapter 550 of our zoning code through the addition of language to Sections 550-53D, Pren 1, Pren B. Again, from me and the Plan Commission with a positive recommendation on the first reading. Is there a motion on this one?
I'll move for 24-05.
Thank you, Mr. Blanky. Motion by Blanky, second by Moldenhauer. Comments or questions on this one? All right, Megan.
Blanky?
Aye.
Smith?
Abstain.
Wetzel? Moldenhauer? Davis? Lampy? Board? Bartz? Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you. Let's move to resolutions. We have just one this evening. It's Exhibit 9576. This is a resolution to approve the county library services. This is here from Mr. Wetzel and the Library Board. Motion by Mr. Wetzel, second by Mr. Smith. Any questions or comments on this one? Megan?
Wetzel? Moldenhauer? Davis? Lampy? Board? Bartz? Blanky?
Aye.
Smith? Motion passed 8-0.
Thank you. We do have another opportunity from comments from citizens present. Anyone online that would like to comment? All right, with that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Moldenhauer, second by Mr. Bartz. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, we are adjourned. That was an abysmal aye, but we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone. It was just really like aye.